Well, to talk more about President Trump's Middle East policies, we're joined by Jonathan Schanzer. He's the Senior Vice President for Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Welcome, Jonathan. Good to have you with us. It has been 100 days then. Tragically, the hostages are still in Gaza. Hamas is still in power. Despite Trump's very strong statements early on, about opening the gates of hell on Hamas and depopulating the Gaza Strip and turning it into a Riviera. Do you think Trump is going to run out of patience with this war?
Well, I think he's running out of patience, but I think the question is, who is he running out of patience with? I don't think that it's Israel. I think I have to be clear here. Donald Trump is still very frustrated with the Iranians. He's frustrated with the Houthis. I think he's frustrated with Hamas itself. I think he's got a lot of patience for what Israel's doing. Israel has a green light to continue to strike at Hezbollah in Lebanon, to continue to prosecute the war in Gaza. You have Donald Trump cracking down on the Houthis as we speak. I think there are a few areas where I'd be concerned right now. One is, of course, with the nuclear talks that are ongoing with the Iranians. How much leverage is he going to give the Iranians here? And will we return to some kind of JCPOA-like deal? That's one concern. The other concern that, I think very few people have talked about is how much patience he has for the Turks and for this new regime in Syria. It appears that he's kind of given the Turks and this new regime a green light to pursue their policies as they see fit. So I think it's a mixed bag so far for this 100 days, but overall, I think Israel seems to be in a better position than it was 100 days ago.
There have also been some concerns about the Trump administration's relationship with Qatar, and that while Trump has been really critical and put a great deal of pressure on Jordan and Egypt, traditional U.S. allies, Qatar, which sponsors and hosts Hamas, does appear to get a free pass. Do you agree with that?
I do agree, and I do think that the relationship between Qatar and the United States needs to be overhauled. I do not believe that Qatar deserves a place in the American alliance structure. They're right now identified as major non-NATO allies. They are major adversaries of the United States when you look at the policies that they've pursued. The support of Hamas is just one of those areas, but they've also been supporters of the Taliban, supporters of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They're the ones behind the Al Jazeera television station that continues to whip the Middle East up into a frenzy. They continue to look at this ongoing war as something that Israel started versus Hamas, and that all comes down to the kinds of messaging that's come out of that television station. So I think a serious overhaul is needed at minimum. The Qataris should not have a place at the negotiating table. You should not be a patron of Hamas while simultaneously working with the Israelis and the United States to have Hamas release the hostages. Makes no sense to me.
You mentioned Iran, and here in Israel, a lot of people are worried that President Trump is heading towards a bad deal on the nuclear program. Again, given that he hasn't managed to get a deal for Ukraine and Russia or get any more hostages out of Gaza, do you think Trump might be about to sign up for something which looks like a win in terms of foreign policy, but really isn't long term?
Look, that's the fear. I do think that the president has made it clear that he doesn't want to see Iran go nuclear. And I do think that the messaging coming out of his office, out of the Oval Office, and coming out of Stephen Witkoff, those messages have been at odds at times. And I do think that there needs to be a little bit better of a coordination in terms of communication between the Oval Office and Stephen Witkoff's office. I also think that Stephen Witkoff himself may be a bit overextended. And here I think it's important to understand that he's trying to negotiate a deal with Iran. He's trying to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. He's trying to get the hostages out of Gaza. It could be that the man just has one or two files too many right now, and that if we really are looking for wins, it would be incumbent upon Donald Trump to split things up a little bit, have maybe Marco Rubio take over on one or two of these files. I actually think Marco Rubio would be better served as the guy negotiating with Iran. He, as a senior senator who's well versed in these issues, I think he knows the playbook that the Iranians are running. and he knows how to counter it. So, you know, if at some point we come to a stalemate with the Iranians, perhaps there is an alternative here for Donald Trump if he's open to it.
We know there are competing strains of influence, if you like, inside the White House. You've got the isolationists like Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson on one hand, and then you've got the more traditional conservatives like Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz on the other side. Who is winning that battle, do you think?
I think it's still a tug of war, to be honest. You know, we can see signs of both sides prevailing in smaller conflicts, right? I mean, look at what's going on in Yemen right now. The internationalists, if you will, the sort of traditional foreign policy types in the Republican Party, they've won out here. I mean, you can see that the engagement with Yemen did not sit well, for example, with J.D. Vance, the vice president, in that leaked signal text chain that the Atlantic ultimately ended up revealing. You get a sense here that the internationalists won out there, but I think the isolationists have at least curbed some of the instincts of the other side here when it comes to the Iran talks. They're giving these talks a chance at really, as the other side boils, right? The internationalists are watching in total disbelief that this could even happen. So you see a bit of a tug of war. This is very normal for administrations. First 100 days, you don't have a clear winner. There's not a clear loser. I do expect this sort of competition to heat up within the president's inner circle. And at some point, we will see a winner and a loser, or at least someone who comes out with more leverage. And that's one to watch.
Jonathan Schanzer at the FDD, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.